appear to the rest of us appear to be here, so we will get started. And I apologize for the delay. I don't know what the cause was, but I'd like to call the meeting to order. We, as you will know, we have transitioned this meeting to a Zoom only meeting because of the weather, and so all of the participants are on Zoom. We have with us this evening Councillor Bray, we have Councillor Lamb, and we have Councillor Brian Woods, and myself, George Comrie. We also have with us our CAO clerk, Michelle Henry, and our fire chief, Bob Whitman. And we do have some guests who are going to be presenting later on. So we'll get underway. Can we, are we going to play the national anthem, Madam Clerk?
We are, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. Thank you. I will now ask if any councillor has a pecuniary interest to declare in this evening's proceedings. Okay, here, let the record show that there was none declared. Could I get a motion then to approve the agenda as circulated, please? Mover and seconder.
I'll move it. Councillor
Thank
Lamb.
you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Any discussion? If not, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Nash, or he's not here. Sorry about that. Councillor Woods
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, we'd like to move into committee of the whole for the presentation from the biosphere and also for one planning matter. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that we move into committee of the whole?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Once again, can we call the roll for the vote, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you, that motion carries.
Okay, we're in committee of the
6:43.
whole at 6:43. The next item on our agenda is a presentation from Katrina Kriebens, I believe, is going to present from the Georgian Bay Biosphere. And this is a presentation that she has primarily in regards to benthic monitoring, but other water quality matters in general for 3 lakes in the municipality. And you've had a chance to look at the report that this is based on, which is on our for anyone who hasn't seen it, is on the municipal website. It's posted there. So it's my pleasure to welcome you, Katrina, to our meeting, and I understand you have some slides that you're going to take us through.
Share my screen here and get started. Confirm that you're seeing my slides and presentation view there.
I can see it, yes.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay, well, good evening, and thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you all today and give a high-level overview of Whitestone's Aquatic Environment Report that Mayor Comrie just mentioned. I'm going to start off by giving really a quick overview of the partnership between the municipality of Whitestone and the Georgian Bay Minidoka-MU Biosphere. And next, I'll give an overview of what is covered in the Aquatic Environment Report and the data sources that we draw on. And finally, I'll provide some high-level results and recommendations and then open it up to any questions. So the partnership between Whitestone and GVB began in 2020, and it was actually facilitated through the Whitestone Conservation Association to start. 2020 was the first year of benthic monitoring on Whitestone Lake and the first time that we prepared the Aquatic Environment Report. In 2021, GVB began working directly with the municipality, which started with a request to provide a number of different services, and those services included several hours of staff training on invasive species and species at risk, covering topics like identification of species and their habitats, as well as best management practices. There were also 2 educational webinars for members of the public covering forest pests and invasive species, and a series of public communication materials related to invasive species. 2021 was also the first year of benthic monitoring on Wawashkash Lake. And then in 2022, benthic monitoring expanded to Lorimer Lake, which continued in 2023 as well. And each year, we've been updating that Aquatic Environment Report. The purpose of preparing the Aquatic Environment Report is to provide Whitestone residents with a summary of water chemistry, benthic monitoring, and fish community monitoring data for Lorimer, Wawashkash, and Whitestone lakes all in one place. So rather than having to jump around to different websites to get information on these lakes, the Aquatic Environment Report brings it all together in one report. So if you're interested or concerned about what's happening on these lakes, you essentially have a one-stop shop for available information. The information presented in the water chemistry section of the report varies depending on the lake that we're talking about. But what all 3 lakes have in common is that they have volunteers who participate in the Lake Partner Program, or LPP, for their lake. And the LPP is an Ontario-wide, publicly funded, free program that collects data about phosphorus, water clarity, calcium, and chloride. And this is all done by volunteers. The program has been running for over 3 decades, providing a rich data set that can assist in the early detection of changes in the nutrient status or water clarity of lakes that are brought on by impacts of shoreline development, climate change, and other stressors. So once these volunteers take the samples from their lakes, they ship them off, and the scientific analysis of the samples is conducted by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. And after careful scientific quality checking, the data set is then released online for volunteers, general public, researchers, really anyone who wants to review it and use it. So this is actually, it's quite an incredible example of open source data that we're actually really fortunate to have here in Ontario. If you do a Google Scholar search for Lake Partner Program, you'll see that these data are used in scientific peer-reviewed papers. So it's safe to say that these are quality data coming out of this program. Lake Wawashkesh also has a water quality management program in which volunteers measure the additional parameters that you see here on the screen. The association itself reports these results out to its members periodically. Volunteers with the Whitestone Conservation Association also measure additional parameters as shown on the slide here. And to my knowledge, these data are not currently analyzed further, but the records are kept every year. So there is an ongoing database of that information. Next is benthic monitoring. So this is a type of biological monitoring that focuses on benthic macroinvertebrates. So that's a lot of long words to basically say aquatic bugs that live at the bottom of the lake for all or part of their life cycle. And there's a number of these that folks would be familiar with. For example, mosquitoes have a larval aquatic stage. Leeches are obviously fully aquatic. Dragonflies, damselflies, those sorts of things all have part of their life cycle in the water. And so in this type of monitoring, we're trying to get a sense of the benthic macroinvertebrate community of a lake, and then determine whether it's typical of what we would expect a benthic community to look like in lakes in this region, and then monitor it over the long term to flag any notable changes that might be a sign of bigger changes happening in a lake. So GBB staff complete annual sampling using the standardized Ontario Benthos Biomonitoring Network Protocol, or OBBN for short. So this is a standardized protocol that is used across the province. And there's a certification process behind, a process to becoming certified in this standardized protocol. In terms of fish communities, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry is responsible for gathering data on fish communities in inland lakes. Not all lakes are sampled on a regular basis, nor is the same data collected from every lake. As you can imagine, Ontario is a very large province with many, many lakes. So there isn't a regular rotation of lakes that are sampled. But the fish community information that's presented in the Aquatic Environment Report represents the most up-to-date information that is publicly available from the MNRF for each of the lakes that we're reporting on. If you've ever visited the Muskoka Water website, you'll know that there are lake fact sheets like the one shown on the screen that summarizes fisheries data for lakes throughout the entire Parry Sound Muskoka district. There's also a resource called Fish Online that you see on the right-hand side of the screen where you can find similar information. And the other source we draw on for the report is the Guide to Eating Sport Fish in Ontario, which goes over consumption advisories for different species in different lakes. And this is the extent of the publicly available data in most cases. Some additional reports are available on the Muskoka Water website, but unfortunately there isn't a full database of fisheries reports that is easily available for the public to access. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the really, really high level results right now, but I would start by saying there is a lot more information in the report, and I would definitely encourage folks to read through the sections they're interested in for the full picture. This is my best attempt to kind of summarize very high level results, but there's so much more information that you can get into. So when we're talking about water chemistry, we focus specifically on phosphorus as it's the nutrient that controls the growth of plants in the aquatic environment, including algae. Total phosphorus concentrations are used to interpret the nutrient or trophic status of a lake. And trophic status is typically described in terms of three broad categories. The first is oligotrophic, and this is lakes with total phosphorus or TP levels less than 10 micrograms per liter. Relatively speaking, they're considered unproductive or nutrient poor. Next is mesotrophic. This is lakes with TP levels between 10 and 20 micrograms per liter. These are considered moderately enriched. And finally, eutrophic. These are lakes with TP concentrations over 20 micrograms per liter, in which persistent nuisance algal blooms are possible. So for Lorimer Lake at the top here, you'll see the trophic status is oligotrophic. And I know I just described that as unproductive or nutrient poor, but that's relative to the other categories. Oligotrophic lakes can and still do support healthy benthic invertebrate and fish communities. Many of the lakes in our region are oligotrophic, so please don't read that as a bad thing. So again, yeah, the trophic status would be considered oligotrophic. The total phosphorus trend, there's a slight decreasing trend. And our recommendation in terms of water chemistry for Lorimer Lake is to continue with LPP monitoring annually. For Wawashkash, also considered oligotrophic. Some of the sites are showing a slight increasing trend in total phosphorus, but there is another site that doesn't show any trend. So for the most part, things are kind of holding steady over the longer term. Again, we recommend continuing with the LPP program and continuing to summarize the data gathered through that separate Wawashkash monitoring program and continuing to share that analysis with interested community members. Results so far for Whitestone Lake indicate that Whitestone is oligotrophic bordering on mesotrophic, but to be fair, there really isn't enough data yet. There aren't enough years of LPP data yet really to comment on average TP or total phosphorus trend. So this year, I believe, would have been the third year of sampling on Whitestone Lake through the Lake Partnering Program, and those data don't become available typically until the following spring. So we only have a couple years to report on so far. So at that point, we wouldn't yet be calculating an average total phosphorus. It's just not enough data, and we certainly wouldn't be talking about any trends yet. So we recommend continuing with that LPP monitoring, but we also suggest working on clearly defining objectives for the additional monitoring that is happening on Whitestone, those parameters that I showed earlier, and then analyzing and reporting out on those data accordingly. All right, the objectives of the benthic monitoring are to characterize the average benthic community of each lake, and then compare that to lakes in the Parry Sound Muskoka district to determine whether the benthic community is considered typical of what would be expected for a lake in this region. More specifically, we report on lake benthic communities in terms of the percentage of pollution-sensitive groups that are found. And these pollution-sensitive groups include larval mayflies, which their technical term is Ephemeroptera, larval dragonflies and damselflies, known as Odonata, and caddisflies, known as Trichoptera. And so collectively, they're referred to as EOT, standing for Ephemeroptera, Odonata, and Trichoptera. These taxa are very sensitive to pollution and habitat alterations, meaning that their numbers will be highest in healthy lakes and lowest in unhealthy or disturbed lakes. So the average percent EOT for a lake is compared to the normal range for percent EOT in lakes in the region, and that's what's shown in this somewhat overwhelming visual. But in other words, this monitoring seeks to answer the question, does the percent EOT for the lake of interest fall within the normal range of what would be expected for a lake in the region? And the answer for Whitestone and Wawashkash is yes. These benthic communities are considered typical for what we would expect in this region. Additional years of data are needed for Lorimer Lake. As you might recall from an earlier slide, Lorimer was added a little bit later than Whitestone and Wawashkash. So similar to the analysis of total phosphorus data, we want to have 3 or more years of benthic monitoring data before we start doing any sort of analysis and commenting on the community as a whole. So our recommendation is to continue with annual monitoring to complete that initial analysis for Lorimer Lake and to be able to look at trends over time in all 3 lakes. When it comes to fish communities, Lorimer Lake continues to be managed as a put, grow, take lake for lake trout, which means it's periodically stocked and with the assumption that there is a recreational fishery on the lake. According to publicly available information, the last index netting was completed on Lorimer Lake by the ministry in 2000. For Wawash-Kesh, there was a synoptic trap net survey conducted in 2002, focusing on walleye and smallmouth bass populations. And then 2 years later, spring littoral index netting was completed to monitor relative abundance of lake trout. Whitestone has had the most recent fisheries assessment with broad scale monitoring conducted in 2021. There are some limited results from that study that can be found on the Fish Online website. Some examples are shown here at the bottom of the slide. So those are visuals that are available on Fish Online that anyone can go and look up. Again, there's more information in the aquatic environment report, but this gives you just a really high level understanding of the type of information found within it. So with that, I'll say miigwech. Thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to take questions at this time. If I don't have the answer right away, I'll be sure to follow up with one as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you very much, Katrina. I will open the floor up to questions from our council members.
Well, I can go first, Mr. Mayor. Can
Go
you hear
ahead.
me? Yeah,
Councillor
yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah. Katrina, thank you. I certainly could never get a degree in at university, which I'm sure you have, because I couldn't spell or pronounce half the words you use. So I would fail every exam, but anyway, good for you. So just a couple questions. Maybe this is more of staff. How much do we pay per year for the benthic monitoring?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I could provide those quite easily though. Yeah, unless somebody else has them.
I don't know whether Michelle has them there or not.
I, excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
believe it's somewhere around 6,500 that we paid this year. And I suspect I would look back, but there's been some small incremental increases each year,
Okay.
and that 6,500 would be for the 3 lakes.
Okay, thank you. I remember when this first came in, as the mayor would too. And it was, Dennis Morrison, I think, coming to us and wanting us to do this. And we were kind of sold that this was a kind of a 3-year program. And that was, I'm talking for Whitestone Lake, right? And I think they even chipped in or paid half or something in the first year, and then we've taken it over ever since. So I guess the way I read it is the 3 years are up. We're in the not so bad category, the left category on the chart or on the chart you gave us. And we're trending like every other lake. Why do we have to keep doing this on an ongoing basis? Like, I can see carrying on with Lorimer Lake, obviously, if they're in their 2nd year, I think, of this. But what, and I think, like, for in other words, why wouldn't we phase it out after 3 years with the lakes we've done? And if anything, go to a new lake. Like, why would we just keep, kind of testing Whitestone Lake for 10 years and saying, yeah, it's the same or pretty much the same. And we have other lakes in our municipality that we may want to replace with this. So I guess I throw that to you as a question.
Yep, that's a fair question. So it completely depends what your objectives are. I mean, one of the great things about benthic monitoring, and it's very similar to the Lake Partner Program monitoring, the total phosphorus monitoring, is we're really interested in long-term trends. So 3 years is the minimum before we would even analyze the data because we want to try to capture, have a good understanding of what the benthic community is like. Just looking at 1 year, it's much too short a time or a snapshot. So 3 years is sort of that minimum to say, okay, this is where we think the benthic community is at right now. This gives us a good idea. If you want to look at trend over time and have a sense of whether things are changing in the lake. So, I mean, you could stop now and you could sample again in 10 years and you might have a drastically different benthic community. And at that point, the changes that have happened, it might be kind of too late to deal with them. Not all changes are abrupt, so monitoring trend through time is helpful for understanding incremental changes. But it really does come down to your objectives and what you want to know. So we can certainly chat more about which program design best suits what the municipality is hoping to achieve or understand. But yeah, I would say that it comes back to what your objectives are. I can say for sure with the Lake Partner Program data, having such a long running data set has been quite important. As I mentioned, if you do a Google Scholar search for Lake Partner Program, you'll see a paper come up about chloride trends, salt trends in Ontario lakes. And because we have that long-term data set, we can actually see that there are changes in chloride levels across the province, likely due to the application of salt and brine solutions on roads in Ontario. But anyways, that's just an example of why long-term trends, analyzing those trends are important. But yeah, to reiterate, totally depends on what the municipality's goals and objectives are. So there are different program designs that are options.
Yeah, so just a couple more short ones, Mr. Mayor. So you're saying, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, we could be testing, oh boy, that's really changed on Whitestone Lake. But once it goes to the next level, it doesn't then return to the other level, does it? I mean, isn't this a cumulative kind of thing? I mean, isn't the reflection of what your data is showing now a reflection of the last 100 years on the lake? Or would it have been really bad 40 years ago and all of a sudden it's really good now, or pretty good now? Like, isn't it you know what I'm getting at? I
think I do, but I would say, so the reason why benthic macroinvertebrates, these bugs, are a good indicator of water quality is because they are shorter lived, anywhere on the order of 1 to 3 years typically, and they're not as mobile as something like a fish. So if there's a disturbance or an impact or a water quality concern like pollution, you could wipe out the entire benthic community. So if that happened next year and we stopped monitoring Whitestone, we come back in 5 or 10 years and the benthic community has changed drastically. We don't know when it happened or why it happened. I mean, you'd likely start to see other changes in the lake as well. But because they are short-lived and they're fairly, they have quite a small range of an area where they can go. They're not like fish, where a fish could move just to another part of the lake and get away from a water quality concern, that sort of thing. So I do understand what you're saying, but it is possible to drastically alter a benthic community in a short amount of time with some form of disturbance or pollutant, for example.
Yeah, we can't do every lake, obviously. It would cost too much. So yeah, okay. My final comment is that Dennis Morrison, I know, has been doing lake testing on Whitestone for years and years and years, and has all the results, and whenever he's reported them to council, it's certainly not been alarming in any way. So I think he even did a little bit of testing on Lorimer, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago. And I'm sure the Wawashkesh conservation people have done testing for years on their lake. And again, I haven't heard of any dramatic and that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I've never heard of any dramatic concerns on Wawashkesh. So anyway, those are my comments, and I thank you for your presentation and coming before us tonight. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Bray, did you have looked like you were gonna ask a question?
Well, I was just thinking, I guess along what Councillor Lamb was talking about. So Katrina, if we did continue doing the testing and we did see a change happening, are there ways, are there easy ways to mitigate the change getting to the eutrophic level, or how would a community deal with that?
Yeah, so the a shift towards a mesotrophic or eutrophic system has to do with nutrients. So you would see that shift probably most obviously in the Lake Partner Program results. I'm just gonna, on my screen here, flip back to my slide. So for example, how I mentioned Wawashkesh has a slight increasing trend for 3 sites, although another site shows no trend. So let's say, for example, that wasn't over time, it was no longer a slight increase. We actually saw quite a dramatic increase in the trend over time. Then you're likely dealing with an increase of in the inputs of nutrients to the lake, and that would be a cause for concern. And so what the Lake Partner Program results would do is that it would raise a red flag to say, to ask further questions. Why are we seeing an increase in nutrients? Where is this coming from? And so you would do further studies at that point to try to figure out what the source of the increase in nutrients is. There could be many sources. Yeah, there's lots of different possibilities there, but oh, I hope I didn't lose you. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the monitoring is really a way to raise a red flag when you see changes, and that's why I keep going back to this long-term trend, because it does give you a better idea of when things are changing.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? Councillor Woods.
Oh, I'm okay right now, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I guess one of the I think when this idea first came, the idea of doing benthic monitoring first came up, we had thought that we would try to at least sort of establish what I would call baseline for a number of lakes, and I guess the intention was to go and start looking perhaps at some or try to include at least some of the other lakes that we have, just so we would, that maybe have never been tested, and we would have an idea what they're like. I'm wondering, and you might want to comment on this, Katrina, if we were to take the existing lakes and that we have tested, once we've done 3 years and got, I'm calling it a baseline, and I realize it's, you know, it's maybe not 100% accurate, but terminology to use. But once we had that baseline, then we could perhaps not do the benthic monitoring, maybe only every 2nd year or every or something like that. And so we could perhaps have a program that ran in perpetuity, that sort of steady state was getting to every lake every 2 or 3 every 2 or 3 years. I know there's one of the criticisms that I've had of the fish monitoring, that DMNR does is that it's very sporadic, right? You know, so they'll like Washkesh, where I am, was last done back in, I don't know, it was 2004 or something. I remember it very well. I get pictures of them out there with the gill net, pulling fish up into the boat and freezing cold too. Pulling fish up into the boat and measuring them and weighing them, tossing them back. But and then they haven't done it. How long ago was that? It's 20 years almost, you know. And so all kinds of people are pontificating about what's happening to lake trout, but I don't think they really know. As I'm using that as an example. So anyway, I'm wondering if it would make sense to try to establish a sort of a, you know, a reasonably short interval, not every year, but every 2 or maybe 3 years or whatever, and redo the benthic monitoring. What do you think about that?
We can certainly prepare a few different options, like program design options. That's definitely doable, and we can chat about what works best for the goals and objectives of the municipality. And yeah, we'd be happy to provide some different options.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I might just comment that we have, well, Councillor Bray is a member of the municipality's environmental stewardship committee, and so is Councillor Nash, who's not with us tonight, but that's perhaps something that should be discussed by that committee and a recommendation brought back to council. Does that make sense to you, Councillor Bray?
Sure, that's fine. I can take that forward to our committee.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions, I guess we will move on in our agenda, but I do want to thank you again, Katrina, for sharing this information with us, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue about lake quality monitoring.
Great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
So our second item in the committee of the whole is a planning matter, which really is a consent to establish a road access right in title easement. We do have our planner, the planner from the Parry Sound Area Planning Board with us, John Jackson. So John, I will let you kick this one off, if you don't mind, please.
Thank you. This is a purely technical application to correct the evolution of some lost access rights on 3 elongated properties, primarily based on how over the decades the bunny trail has changed. So it has really a regularizing function or a technical function only. It doesn't create any new development, so that Mrs. Stibler is providing access over a new portion of property, although the road is established and the rights of way are there, and the owners have found that through various title searches that they were missing the connecting dots. So it has no real impact in terms of the public interest, but certainly has a benefit to the property owners themselves. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thanks. I'll open it up for questions, comments.
I don't have a question on this application. It seems to be straightforward and fairly simple. But I don't want you to leave, John, before I can ask you one question on the previous subject.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go through this one and then you can ask the question. Are there any other, Councillor Bray or
No.
Councillor Woods? No?
No,
Questions?
this is pretty straightforward, Mr. Mayor. I'm good.
Okay, well, I think that's my view as well. I think in general, we would try to encourage people to have clear rights of access to their properties. It's not that it's going to be the municipality's problem down the road if they don't, I suppose, but it's generally in the public interest, I think, to tidy these situations up when they're identified. So Councillor Lamb, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I
about-
just really wanted John's opinion. I know you were away. I left a message. I maybe didn't get it for you to call me today. I wanted your opinion on the Bentic monitoring. The value of it. I take it you were on for that presentation or no?
Yes, I was on for that presentation.
Can you just give us your opinion as our planner? And I know with a lot of comments you've made on lake planning and other things from your standpoint, can you just comment in general?
I think any data or science that is available to any party, whether it's an individual, association, or municipality, or any government level, has got value. But when it comes to having a direct relationship to land use planning, I don't find that it's very helpful. I do appreciate and understand the parameters that we work with in terms of water quality as it relates to land use planning. I wouldn't judge the value because I'm not a true scientist. I know out in front of my property, for example, I run into University of Guelph personnel who are out there every summer examining how robust the general water quality health is. I often ask them towards what end, and it's just for, as the mayor indicated, having a baseline to understand those trends. But when it comes to direct value to what we do as policy or legislators, it's got really not a lot of impact. I don't know if that helps or not. I don't want to judge the importance of having that science, but for us in the planning world, it doesn't have a lot of relevance.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay, so if there is nothing further on this item, we can entertain a motion to return. I'll find it first. Sorry about that. We can entertain a motion to reconvene into a regular meeting, leave committee of the whole and return to our regular meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Seconded
I'll
by
second.
Councillor Bray.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We'll call the question then, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried. It's 7:21 PM.
Okay, thank you. So just a couple of items that arise from the committee of the whole. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the presentation from the Georgian Bay Udugami Biosphere entitled 2023 Whitestone Aquatic Environmental Report, Lorimer, Wawashkish, and Whitestone Lakes be received for information?
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bray.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Any discussion? All right, let's call the question, please.
Councillor Bray,
Yes?
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
And then item 5.2, our planning item, I'll read the motion we're looking for. Whereas John Jackson Planner Incorporated has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B04 2023 Whitestone. The applicant is Olive Stibler and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone recommends this consent application for approval in principle, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the right-of-way lots be assigned the correct 911 addressing from the municipality. And two, that payment of all applicable planning fees be made to the municipality of Whitestone. Who would like to move that?
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll
Councillor
second.
Woods.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Any discussion? If not, let's call the question, please.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of regular council meeting minutes for Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. Regular closed session meeting minutes for Thursday, November 9th, 2023. And the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting minutes of October 23rd, 2023, and the unfinished business that is listed on page 4 of tonight's agenda. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the following council meeting minutes. The regular council meeting minutes for Tuesday, November 7th, and the regular council meeting minutes for Thursday, November 9th. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives for information the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting minutes for October 23rd, 2023, and the unfinished business listing contained in the consent agenda dated November 21st, 2023. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Seconded.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. So any discussion on these? If not, we can call the question.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our accounts payable, item 8. Gotta get a mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone received for information the accounts payable listing in the amount of $58,586.27 for the period ending November 16th, 2023.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Are there any questions or comments on the payables?
Yeah, I have some, just hold on. I was looking at something else here. Accounts payable, sorry for that. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I just like what I don't on page 40 of 120 under Duck Rock Resort, it says Recreation Committee Pro Fuel and Supplies. What is that? There's a whole bunch of Duck Rock things, 40 goes into $4,800 or so. It just, what's that? Our truck going in to pick something up for the Recreation Committee and charging it back to them? I assume that's what it is. I guess my question is, there's no volunteer picking up gas.
If I may,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, if I may answer that question, that
Go
was
ahead, Ben.
from, we did receive some receipts dating back from the summer, which included propane tanks.
you didn't receive what, David? I'm sorry.
Sorry, if you can hear me. We did receive invoices from the Duck Rock that were dated back to the summer in July and August. And this included propane tanks that were used by the recreational committee.
For the barbecue on Canada Day.
Oh, okay,
That's what it would be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't, yeah, now I see, now I realize what it would have been, yeah.
Yeah, it just hit me as a strange thing, so,
Yeah,
my next one is page 42 of 120. ExploreNet, invoice, or I guess number 1837. And my only comment, and excuse me if we've already been through this and determined that it wasn't a good thing, but this is up at the fire station. And I know we're unable to have our council meeting our council meeting that's regularly in August up there because of the instability of the internet connection for a proper meeting. So we're paying $141 a month. Why couldn't we get a Starlink system up there that would allow us to would give the people up there, if they were on it, a lot more powerful internet connection, and secondly, may allow us to have a meeting up there. So I don't think it's going to be resolved tonight, but is that not a possibility as we move into our budgets and stuff?
our fire chief is on the call. Or is on this, on Zoom I don't know if he has any comments about it, but, my understanding is that it provides internet for the fire hall. And it's not, the extent of any Wi-Fi would be what would be in the fire hall. That Wi-Fi would not likely reach as far as the Ard Bay Community Club. And I guess if you were to put a Starlink on the community club, which would give them good Wi-Fi, but that wouldn't necessarily supply the, and there would have to be a separate link in order to get that signal across from there to the fire hall.
Yeah, I mean, what they call it, a cone or something months ago. I forget the technical.
Yeah, It's a Wi-Fi bridge, yeah, there's,
Yeah.
it's entirely
Well,
possible.
I
But it
just
would,
think it makes sense for in terms of an internet connection up there, and if we have one already, does the public use that one up there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. The ExploreNet at the fire hall, I'm not sure it's used really by the fire department. It is the public, one of the public access points that the municipality has.
Okay, well,
The-
I'd like staff to, from my standpoint at least, look into, not like this month or anything, but as we head towards our budget, to look at what it might cost to switch over and provide a far better internet access up there, including putting a little cone, and then we can go back perhaps to having a meeting in Ardbeg. So anyway, that's just a request to look at it, I guess. So.
okay, thank you. Do you have any others?
Yeah, I
councillors?
have one, Steinhoff Building Services Group. I go way back with Steinhoff, but anyway, page 46 of 120. And this is for the facilities assessment, $3,600. I was just wondering, do we have planned in our council schedule when the facilities assessment will be coming forward?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I do have to confirm with the Public Works Manager. We're hopeful that the presentation will be at the December 12th meeting, and I see the Public Works Manager has just turned on his camera. Are you able to confirm that, Mr. Creaser?
Yes, that's my understanding. I was just talking with them today, so that's what we're working towards.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Questions from anyone else?
No.
Councillor Bray,
No, I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Woods,
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I'm okay, Mr. Mayor.
okay, thanks. I just had one that I'm a little curious about, and it's the one immediately in front of the one that Councillor Lamb asked last about. It's the 1849 is the check number or payment number. Mullen Heating and Cooling Inc. and the description says block furnace nursing station, and it's about, well, $6,500 in total. What was that about?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is.
I can speak firstly to that cost, and then I'll have the manager speak to the reason. So it was the original furnace at the nursing station. There's two in the original part that failed and had to be replaced. This cost is going to be covered by the foundation monies at the Westbury Sound Health Center. We've paid for it because we own the furnace now, and we'll manage the warranty, but the costs are going to be covered by the Westbury Sound Hospital Foundation, 100%. And so Public Works Manager Creaser might want to speak to the.
Yeah, I'm still having trouble understanding what could cost $6,500. You could put in a new furnace for that.
We did. It is a furnace.
So, okay, so I'm sorry, I know, David, do you have, can you give some more background?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did have the furnace fail, and there was complaints of it was quite cold on the old side, and we troubleshooted, and Mullins Heating came in and recommended a new furnace as he had trouble getting parts for the old furnace. It was quite old, including the board, and he recommended a new furnace. And in discussing, we're looking for resources for options on what to do. We did come up with Michelle was very good at helping to get the resources for replacing. So a new furnace was put in. with the new ductwork, all the new ductwork that had to go with it, to go on top of the furnace and tie back into everything. So that did, on top of the cost of the new furnace, you had the ductwork as well. And that was done in a very short order. So that's where the cost came in for the new furnace in the old section of the nursing station.
And would I be correct in thinking that those two furnaces are not twinned? So if
You are
one
correct.
if one fails, part of the building is cold and the only part of the building is being heated, is that the situation?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Could you repeat your question? I missed that.
I said the two furnaces are not twinned. In other words, they're not both feeding the same duct network. So if one furnace fails, the part of the building that is heated by it or cooled by it, as the case may be, gets no heating or cooling, just the part whose furnace is still working.
That is correct.
The two systems are not connected together is what I'm
That is
am I
correct. You are correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Can I go back to my last one? I got a message from the fire chief that he was trying to get in, but somehow couldn't get in to talk on the item about the internet. And his message was the fire department does not have a computer at Station 2. And that internet is strictly for the public, which is what Michelle said. And I had suggested moving it over to the community center. And Bob may want to, if he's still on the call, talk to it, but that sort of makes sense to me. If we stuck it at the community hall, I thought it was there because of the fire department, but if it's not there for the fire department, then why would we not make some arrangement with the community people up at the Ardbeg community people to put an internet there? And if people wanted to use the internet, there's a parking lot and everything, right there for them to park in and use it. So, anyway, sorry about that, to go back to this.
No, that's good. If it's just for the public, then the community club would be a better place to have it than the fire.
Yeah, like I don't know why it's at the fire department, sort of,
But,
right? Regardless
I
of
just
whether
assumed that the fire department still had a vested interest in having it there, but if they don't.
No, the fire chief, Bob, may want to talk to it. Are you still there, Bob? He's trying to get in. I don't think he can get in or something.
He's
muted.
He's
Well, he's
muted.
not showing him. He isn't connected with his microphone because I don't see the microphone symbol showing. So that means he's only connected. Well,
Okay, well, I think I've relayed what he relayed to me, so.
Yeah. Anyway,
Maybe
we
we
can we can follow up afterwards if necessary, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we done then with accounts payable? Is there anything else that anyone wishes to raise? If not, let's call the question, please.
Counselor Bray,
Yes,
Counselor Lamb,
Yes,
Counselor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie,
Yes,
that motion is carried.
okay, thank you. So that brings us to section 10 of the agenda, and we have a bylaw. Or I guess it's a bylaw to replace the bylaw. And you can see what it is. It's it's essentially to renew the agreement between Whitestone and Orange, which governs the operation and maintenance of the helipad in Ardbeg. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 72-2023, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Whitestone and Orange which sets out the terms and conditions of the use, operation, and maintenance of the helipad, surrounding area and easement, and to repeal bylaw 0920-2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 21st day of November 2023, and numbered bylaw number 72-2023. Mover and
move.
seconder.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, I think Councillor Lamb was there first, but thank you, everybody. Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this one?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you.
Go ahead.
Oh, again, Bob's not in. My question more is to him on this, right? Well, one to David and one to him. I was just wondering whether, you know, at one point Orange wasn't going into the helipad up there and landing at night. I just wanted kind of an update as to whether they are now doing that or what's happening with the helipad at the night or during the night. So I guess he can't respond. I take it he's in on the call, I think is what he's trying to tell me. I'm trying to get him up here. I'm on the phone. I'm not on the internet, so I can't visit for whatever reason, but yeah, that explains it.
He must have his microphone of his phone muted. If you press *6, it should open it up again.
Bob, can you hit *6? He's sending me a message here, so I don't know what's happening. I think the answer is no.
Sounds like he's not connected now.
Well, my
David, do you happen to know? It is my understanding.
Hold on. Here's the answer. Hey, Joe, for whatever reason, it's not working, but yet Orange is still landing there. They've landed there twice at night, but yeah, I pressed *6, but it won't let me in for whatever reason. So that answers my question. They are landing at night, which is good.
Yeah,
Good.
that's what
So
I was
my
going to
second-
say.
my second-
Yeah.
My second question was to David, and I guess to our CAO. Is 3,500 enough? 3,500 enough to? They give us 3,500 in this agreement to maintain the helipad and do whatever. Is that enough money? Or should it be? I don't know how long it's been 3,500, but I suspect all during the term of the last agreement for however long that was. But unless, or have they increased it? I don't know. So who can answer that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can answer that, the last question. It has been 3,500 since I've been with the municipality, which is just over 5 years. And as far as the maintenance costs, perhaps Manager Creaser can answer that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't answer that. That is not enough to contract it out. We can't get a contractor for that price due to insurance costs. So we do our best. We work with Bob the best we can, and to do the maintenance. When we're up there, that's the best time with our big trucks in the wintertime. So if our truck's in the area doing it, we've worked with Bob to try and make the pad accessible for the big trucks. So we do work with them the best we can.
So why wouldn't we get a guesstimate as to what it does cost us, and in a very friendly manner tell them that and ask for whatever it costs us? I'm sure they're just using 3,500 because at some point it was 3,500. So why wouldn't we just ask them, if it's 4,500 or 5,000, say, here are the bills that what it costs us to maintain it. And so therefore we kindly request that you give us 5,000 instead of 35. We're okay with the rest of the agreement, or something to that effect.
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. I think if Chief Whitman is listening, which I believe he is, he could follow up with the folks at Orange. He has a good working relationship with them.
Yeah, well, we
We'll
can
take that
get
under
the actual
advisement.
cost to him, right? We can get the actual cost to Bob, and he can, you know, talk to them from there, so. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
So, yeah, are you suggesting that we not deal with this tonight
Yeah, we can do, I would
or can we
suggest
just
we
pass, or can we just pass it and leave it to see if there's any opportunity to make a change to it?
I don't think there's any time sensitivity to this. In fact, the letter is Thursday, February 16th, 2020. This has been sitting around since February.
But our existing agreement is expired, I suspect.
Yeah. Well, I don't,
Um,
I think if we defer it and just ask the question, it can come back to the next meeting, and it's either 3,500 or whatever we supply Bob to ask for.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to speak to the date of the letter. You can see that it was actually sent to Tammy Wiley. And
Oh,
the folks at Orange contacted Bob a few weeks ago, and they're very gracious, and they asked about the agreement, and they said, well, we know you're busy. And as it turns out, it didn't come to me, it didn't come to Bob. We don't know where it actually went to. So they now
No.
have correct information, contact information. So that's that's why it's very late coming before council. It's because it somewhat got lost in cyberspace.
No, I
So
don't think,
are the mover and seconder agreeable to withdrawing it's Councillor Woods and Councillor Lamb, to withdrawing the motion then and bring it
deferring
back
it.
in well, all right, deferring it, doesn't matter, one or the other. Defer it until December for further information.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Mayor.
You're changing your motion one way or the other, right? Yeah, okay. I guess we still need to call the question to defer though, Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes,
Thank you. That motion to defer is carried.
okay, item number 11. This is related to correspondence that comes from the West Ferry Sound Economic Development Collaborative. So I will, to get us going, I'll just read a motion and we'll see if we can get a mover and seconder. The suggestion motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the correspondence from the West Ferry Sound Economic Development Collaborative dated November 10th, 2023. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone supports moving forward with the development of a strategic plan for the West Ferry Sound Economic Development Collaborative. And that once the strategic plan is finalized, council will determine their interest in supporting the vision and their desire to invest in a collaborative approach to economic development in West Ferry Sound. Would someone like to move that, please?
I'll move it.
Okay.
I'll second.
Councillor Lamb moved and Counselor Bray seconds. Okay, it's open, open for discussion. If any,
Yeah, I can go on my thoughts. You know, I'm okay with all this. I guess we've had the funding, from CINO, is it?
yeah, it's
from
Fenimore, actually.
Yeah, FedNor from 2017 till 2022 or so. So we're now in a new phase. So I'm all for going ahead. What I'm not in favor of is the formula. And the mayor knows, and I think Councillor Woods knows that I've been on this for many years, that we pay what's due and proper for Whitestone, and not more or not less. And if you look at the formula on page 81 of 120, pardon? Yeah, 81 of 120. What if you look at the 3 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? That if you applied the whole 170 to that amount, to that formula only, it would come out in the 6.2 to 6.5% area, somewhere in there for Whitestone, which is where, when they use formulas like this, which I think are the proper type formulas, that's what our proper amount is. And in the past, you know, we paid 11%, which I was never really for, but wasn't successful on council to get passed. And by sticking the $5,000 base contribution in, that makes our contribution 8.5%. And while it may seem like a little bit, it's only 2%. It's more a principle in my mind. Why should we pay as a base contribution $5,000, the same as Parry Sound or Seguin, who, quite frankly, benefit mostly from economic development in the area? We don't get very many taxes. One could say, oh, there's people that might get a job in Parry Sound because of this. Well, that's true, but Parry Sound collect all the taxes, right? They don't say back to us, oh, you know, for economic development, we'll slide you back 1 or 2% or something, right? This is an unfairness in my mind. So I would like, and I will not support the motion as it is, but I would suggest that we add to, if by the motion we're agreeing to the recommended formula for next year and ongoing, then I won't support it. If it's got nothing to do with the formula, then I would ask for a second motion that says that or as part of it, that we question the 5,000 base amount and would like the entire formula based on the 3 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, and we're willing to pay on that basis. And secondly, that of course we expect a full seat at the table based on that contribution. So I could talk to it more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could I just respond? I realized that would be that formula would be a concern to us. That is in a report that was, you could see, that was released by James Cox while he was still with us. He was our EDO at the time, back in September of 2022. And I think that in the discussions that the collaborative has had since then, there's there's lots of concerns about that, and I don't think that there's any suggestion that agreeing to a strategic plan would represent an endorsement of that and of those percentages. I think that's just the reason that report was included is because it does have some background information about some of the things that were accomplished while he was still with us. So
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
I'm just, that certainly doesn't stop us from saying we have a concern about the formula, but the real question that's being asked here, I would say, is do we agree that they should use some of the funds that they have left to develop a strategic plan? And part of that would settle this, would involve, revisiting the whole governance and operating model, so you can figure out, where the money's going to come from and what everybody's going to get for it and that sort of thing. So, that's in essence what I think what they're asking us. There's no, in the
Okay.
discussion that I was a party to, there was no question about, oh, well, if you agree to this, you're agreeing to any formula. In fact, we don't, as you can see from the last clause in this motion that's here, once the plan is finalized and circulated, then council can decide whether in fact we want to participate at all, really, I suppose. And
Yeah, okay. Well, that's fine, Mr. Mayor. I'm okay with that. I was only speaking to the formula. The strategic plan and the work that's gone in is fine, as long as I think you and Michelle are representatives on that, and as long as you can relay. I think you're saying others may have the same sort of concern, right? I don't mind paying, our fair share, which generally is in the 6 to 6.5% area, depending on what you use. But so I'm okay with the motion then, as long as it doesn't tie us into this formula. Because if this formula came back to us in our budgets, I would be very hard pressed to approve it. So anyway, so yeah, okay. Well, I'll vote for the motion.
Did you want to add anything, Madam CAO, to?
Yes, I will very briefly. If firstly, this report was really just for discussion purposes only to the steering committee, not to the board itself. And I made it very clear at the meeting when I saw the report that didn't really suit Whitestone, and others actually had the same thought. And James,
Okay.
he was trying to look at options. There were actually a couple of other options that were discussed at the meeting, but this was really just a report for discussion, knowing that our funding was coming to an end this November or this month, and that we would need to look further for funding and for funding options. And there was a couple of other discussions that were even less favorable than the one you're looking at here. But I would agree with Mayor Comrie that this is here just for information. And the idea is we'll get the strategic plan done. And after that, each municipality can then decide if it's in their best interest to stay in the collaborative and what that would look like from a financial perspective. So I agree, by no means does the resolution tie us to any financial commitment whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied. So.
There was one other comment that I was going to make. I was actually going to make a couple of preliminary remarks about this, but because we have had a couple of meetings of the collaborative, and our either I or our CAO or both of us have attended those, and they've been fairly good meetings. They did engage a consultant to help sort of go through and figure out what the issues were and whether the model, what were the shortcomings of the model we were following. But the thing that I did want to point out is that FedNor, and the letter at the beginning says this, they made a decision. I'd say it's a policy decision at the high level administration in FedNor, and that was communicated to us, by the way, at the conference that was back in Parry Sound in May. But because they spoke at the time, but they said, well, we don't want to fund the salary of an economic development officer anymore. We don't think that's a great idea. And they're pretty much sticking to that. They've stopped doing that in other places. But it doesn't mean that there is no FedNor funding. If a municipality or a group of municipalities have specific economic development initiatives that they want to pursue, and there are some costs associated with that, it is still possible to apply for and receive some FedNor funding. So, and there is a collaborative, and you'll see references to it in some of the material. There's a collaborative that operates on the east side of Parry Sound District, and they do have an economic development officer, and I think they have a couple of staff actually that they've managed to retain through this transition. And they did get some FedNor funding for some of the things that they wanted to do. It just wasn't, they just weren't able to use it to pay the salaries of their economic development staff. So, all these things would have to, I think hopefully would get factored, and there would be some sense as to what possibilities might exist for some external funding for towards what the overall budget would be. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Are there other questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Bray or
No,
Councillor?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, and I'm fine with the resolution, knowing that we have the opportunity to look at it after the after the plan is developed. I think that would be fine.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Woods, any comments?
No, I'm okay, Mr. Mayor. I was questioning the funding model too. The normally, the 6%, 6.5%, but that's fine.
Okay, then, if there's nothing further, I guess we can call the question, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Wood,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a report from our Manager of Public Works on the electric vehicle charging stations that came up in a previous council meeting. To kick that off, could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the memorandum from Manager of Public Works David Creaser dated November 15th, 2023 regarding the electric vehicle charge-on funding program.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by.
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh,
Okay, I got Councillor Woods first. So I'll take you have the report in front of you. I'll ask our Manager of Public Works if he wishes to, or our CAO, whichever one of you wants to kick this off.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. This memo was prepared for council to provide information on the funding opportunities through EV Charge Ontario program. Whitestone would be eligible for 75% of the purchase and installation of electric vehicle charging stations. So that would include both the purchase and installation of the two. The funding for the EV charging stations come with criteria that's required of type and quantity. So the level 2 charging stations are for people with 2 hours or more available for charging. Larger level 3 chargers are for people traveling with 1 hour or less for charging. The dollar amount we receive depends on how much power the unit will be delivering. And then some of the things to consider for future planning is if in the future, these stations that are installed in a location are expanded, it's usually cheaper to put in place the conduit and infrastructure in the beginning of the project and allow for future development. It is advised to build in some redundancies into the charging stations and make 2 or more available. So if one goes down, you still have service. The estimated costs are provided, and they range from $10,000 to $30,000 for Whitestone's portions. There would be fees collected from users of the EV stations, and more information. We can look to see what other information I can get together for opportunities, how many vehicles might use it, what other people are doing. The other thing is this could be a discussion item for the 2024 budget discussion. If you have any questions.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you. I think it would be good to have a little bit of discussion. What I suspect we're going to end up doing, you know, besides receiving this for information, is asking our staff to come back with something that some sort of a proposal to put into the budget discussion. So I guess it would be worth having a little discussion now to help kind of guide them as they do that. So,
Yeah.
Councillor Woods, did you want to start?
Yeah, I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. David, I completely understand what you're saying with running extra conduit and setting up infrastructure, because you never know what's going to come down the road, right? You're better with overkill and setup, and then that way, if we ever decide to add any, if we get them, it's much easier. So I completely understand where you're coming from there. The revenue that you say we could make off of them, how would that work? Is it basically like a gas pump? So you put your card in or your money in the machine and then plug it in to charge your electric vehicle? Oh, you're muted, Dave.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I
Go
understand that the payments are received through an app. So if you have an electric vehicle, you'd have an app on your phone or in your vehicle, and it just would connect. When you connect, it would recognize you and then collect payment for it. I've provided an example of what the charges are from the Canadian Tire in Parry Sound. I guess $20 per hour, level 3 charger.
Wow.
Huh. I don't know. Thinking out loud, we'll call it. I know we've all heard that they're going to stop the sale of light trucks, right? In 2030, I think they say. And we're going to end up, we'll have vehicles that'll be electrically charged vehicles. Would any of these, would it make sense if we're looking at something like this to also maybe look at keeping one close to the public works garage or to the fire hall if we have to buy a vehicle, if maybe we move into an electric vehicle? I'm thinking more along the lines the building inspector vehicle. If we're going to replace that, to me that would be the prime kind of way to start. If we're going to get into electric vehicles, we replace that vehicle with something that would be an electric vehicle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can apply for multiple projects. Each project is identified in a location. So if you have one location, wherever that might be, let's say you've had Public Works, then that would be one project, and you can apply for as many as you'd like for funding. And if we're looking for something internally, then a level 2 would be recommended, because anything internally, you should have enough power or enough time to use a smaller station, level 2 charging station.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks. Other questions or comments? Councillor Bray.
Yeah.
I was interested in this. I think that there are going to be more and more vehicles available that can, and I think that being in the middle of the district of Parry Sound on Highway 124 and the number of vehicles, light trucks that go by here every day between Highway 400 and Highway 11, I'm sure that it would be an excellent spot for people to be able to stop and use it and then continue on where they're going. I don't know if we can ever find out sort of if MTO ever produces information. I don't know. I know they have the counters, but that's about it, I guess. Mr. Creaser, that's about the only way we can find out sort of the number of vehicles that go through our municipality on a daily basis.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that information on me. I can do my best to see what I can come up with for numbers. I do see the odd vehicle going by that are electric, certainly more in the summertime. You are right. There is a policy. Canada has a policy for zero emission vehicles by 2035. As far as I understand, it's a policy, not an act or regulation. So we are going in that direction.
So if we had vehicles like our own vehicles, that we started to work towards electric vehicles in, say, the as you said, the building inspector vehicle, or maybe a truck, a pickup truck or something like that, then we would probably need to have separate charging stations, I would think, at wherever they are stationed, and that this is really more for the public, is it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is for both. You're
Okay.
welcome to apply for where you would like. So if we had an idea of what we'd like, we can put the application in and see what comes back. And they are trying to do everything. They're trying to catch everything. And this is the funding is also available to not just municipalities. The percentage is lower, and I'm not sure if the criteria is different, but they're really trying to cast a wide net here, and really
Okay. We can probably get some idea of what other municipalities have done as well, you know, in terms of like what their costs were and also what they're charging, because I think we can set the amount we charge. We don't have to set it at the highest level. We can always make that determination, I think. Is that correct as well?
through you, Mr. Mayor, the industry is not regulated yet, so there is no there's no regulated amount you can charge. It's really up to whoever is doing it. There are some other bigger municipalities that have some already. I think some of the smaller municipalities will jump on board, like us, if you get 75% of it paid for, and that includes the installation and the station itself. These stations are designed to perform in -40 weather as well as heat, hot weather, and they've been out for a few years. So we do have some information about how they run, and we can get more from other municipalities.
I have just one more comment, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I know my sister has an electric car, and you know, when she comes up in the wintertime, she always has to gauge how much she has left in order to be able to get back to Parry Sound, to one of the charging stations there or wherever. So having a charging station here for anyone who does use it, and I was reminded by somebody how many Teslas they saw going up 520 this summer, that there were more than they had ever thought there would be. You know, that would certainly be a benefit to our tourists as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Lamb, did you?
Yeah. David, it is 35. And there's another goal, I don't know whether it's 2025 or 2030, where it's sort of 60%. And then by 2035, 100% of vehicles being produced have to be electric vehicles. Now, I think it's more than just a policy or something out in the future. I think it's enshrined in something. Not saying it couldn't change, and I'm not sure if the government changed that this target wouldn't change. So, I read somewhere that I am concerned that if you ever got to in rural areas like ours to everything being an electric car, whether the grid could even stand it. I think the mayor brought that up last time, right? It'd blow the electrical grid. But having said that, they probably haven't thought through all that, or maybe they have some plan. But anyway, I think that we need to apply for this because the deadline is January the 31st. So I would suggest that we make the decision to, and I think it's going to be a very tight year. So I have one more question. David, before I give my suggestion, David, when you said the infrastructure, and I'm all with you that we sort of build for the future and not, keep putting more conduit under the ground, but like is in this costing here that you have, does that include the conduit?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. This was provided from other municipalities and what they what their costs were, and they are out the door costs, so to speak.
Okay, so it's going to probably be like I'm suggesting, like if we go in the middle and get one level 3 and one level 2, say for the community center. That's 17.5, so call it 20,000, that we perhaps should think about at least applying for that. And then, seeing what our budget looks like in January and February and see if that's affordable to us this year or not. We could always say if we were granted this, our regrets, unfortunately, our budget is tight, we can't do it this year, but or certainly it's on our radar, a nice kind of letter, right? Or we can simply do it, but I don't think we're going to be able to afford a $30,000 investment is my sense of it, but of course we haven't seen the budget. So I would suggest that we put in for the second category down being one level 3 and one level 2 at the community hall, and then deal with it at the budget. But otherwise we'll run out of time, right? I guess we could get a sneak preview. We look at the budget before January 30th, but I don't know whether we'll be able to kick it out or in at that time, right? So anyway, that's generally my thoughts, I guess. It is what's going to happen in the future. I'm not sure it's going to happen in the timeframes that, but I guess the car companies are probably following, the guidance, and I don't know how much power they'll have over the government. I don't know what's in the states, whether they have similar legislation in the states, in the states themselves or federally, which will drive a lot in North America in the car industry anyway. So those are yet to be whatever. So anyway, that's all my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think we should sort of follow through to the next level of detail, and I'm assuming that there is a supply. There's a supplier of these stations, and they do all the arrangements with. They do the arrangements with Hydro One in this case, because you've got to get Hydro One to give you to put a transformer on a pole and run a conduit down to a pad or whatever that. I guess my suggestion would be that we should look at doing it probably not at the community center, because we're taking away parking spaces that are right in the community center for times when when people may be wanting to park there. We might be better to put them right against the fence at the front of where the LCBO is, or maybe even on the other side where the Grange is, but there might be a little bit of thought necessary for that to see where, but at least you could go to there's some preliminary work that could be done, like to determine, will Hydro One actually connect if you put one there, but I would think that it would be a good idea for us to have a couple of stations. And to be honest, I think most of the installation cost is related to things like transformers and conduit and the actual pad and the designation of the parking space and all that kind of thing. If it would seem to me to be a false economy to put in the lower capacity ones, because they're if you decide later on you want to upgrade them, then you're gonna have to replace the transformer and the wiring and stuff like that. So you're gonna end up with a bill. But I think we should put something into the budget. So I don't know. That's my.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we
Yes,
can
we
decide
have
the
to-
location. We can decide the location at a later date, right? We don't have to. My main concern is that we get something in for the 75% funding.
Yeah.
So we have to put something in, right? And that's why I picked a 3 and a 2. It could be at the Grange or wherever we want it, right? So anyway, I don't know what we want to do with it, but
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I believe each, if I can respond to maybe some of those thoughts, each project, it does require a location. They're going to ask questions such as, is it paved or is it gravel? And that that may affect the concrete pad that goes in, or the pedestal that goes on. I believe that my understanding is that gravel is acceptable. And if that's the case, I believe I would recommend you put it in an area that would not be a prime parking area, that someone else would take it up for whatever reason. It's kind of out of the way, so someone doesn't park there all day and take up that spot. And the other thing is looking forward for future development. If we want to put grow the station and put maybe more pedestals there, the Grange would not be a good a suitable spot. I don't believe the community center either. I was leaning towards the new
twist.
parking lot, the back of the nursing station. That
yeah,
is
that's another one.
maintainable throughout the winter. It's out of the way. It's close enough if people park, they could walk down to the beach, to LCBO or Duck Rock or wherever, take a little walk, and it does a lot for growth as well.
The only thing there, David, is, and not to put a poo-poo on it, but staff park back there. I was at the nurses station yesterday, in fact, and they have like sometimes 7 people in there, and that's their parking area, right? So it might tend to get crowded back there too, right?
Maybe the twist. You own that big property too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
possibility, I guess.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, further to that parking area could be connected to the twist with very little trouble. That behind the nursing station to the that elevation of that property and the drainage, the way it was dropped, it was it was done in such a way to allow for the connection of those two properties. So if we need to expand or move or do whatever we could do with relative ease.
Good.
That's between the Twist and the nurses station, is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
Well, good.
Yeah, that's just a swale, I guess it could be filled in, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so do you want to add something to this? The motion is simply to receive this for information. Do you want to add something to the motion, or do we just give staff direction to prepare an application for? How do you want to do this?
Well, I would suggest, since I think I made the motion, didn't I, or no?
You did. You're the mover, and Councillor Woods is the seconder.
That we direct staff to put an application in for one level 3 and one level 2 port in I guess on the Twist property, if that's, you have to have a property, right? And then we can all, that doesn't mean we're committing to whatever it'll be, 20 grand or whatever. We can deal with that during the budget process, right? It's just that the application will be made. That makes sense?
Yeah, I'm just making a note here that council directs staff to prepare an application for one, what do you call them, class?
Level 3,
Level
Level.
3.
level 3 port and one level 2 port.
And one level 2 port, okay, got it.
In Dunchurch at the former Twist property, because it's not the Twist property anymore. It's I think we should call it former if we're going to refer to it as Twist.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest we put the actual address in the
Sure.
resolution, which I will find.
Yeah,
to
that's good.
complete.
All right, I'm just gonna, because I don't know what it is right now, I'll just, I guess I could look it up, but I'll put the former Twist property because we understand what that is, and you can, Madam CAO, you can replace it in the minutes with the actual. Okay, replace with the actual address. Actual municipal address. Do you have any other comments, Madam CAO, about this?
No, I think that's a good decision. And we'll get busy working on that application. And council will see it at the January 30th budget meeting as an item.
The application has, sorry, you said we'd see it at what, January?
Well, we have a budget meeting on January 30th.
Is that the deadline for the application to go in?
No, the deadline for the application is January 31st. So we're going to put the application in well before that.
Oh,
But
yeah,
I'm just saying,
okay.
as an item on the budget, you'll see that on January 30th.
All right. Okay, is everybody clear about this? Are we ready for the question? Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
That's good. I think this will put us on the map in a way. If we
Yeah.
can make this happen, right? It'll be a map of places where you can get a charge, and that may cause people to come by who wouldn't otherwise. You never know. Okay, so item 11.3. is a report related to a request from the ombudsman's office regarding a complaint they received about, well, so they're requesting interviews, I guess, but a complaint they received about meetings. And in any case, can I get a mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receive for information the ombudsman's office correspondence dated November 14th, 2023 regarding interview requests.
Well, I'll move it if no one does.
I'm going to say nobody wants to move it. And
I'll second,
I'll
Mr. Mayor.
second.
okay, well, all right, I got Councillor Woods. Thank you very much. All right, so do you wish to comment on this first, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think the letter is clear. It's a letter to council, and it appears they're going to be contacting members of council. And I think they already have actually contacted a number of members of council, some of whom they've spoken to and some who they just left messages with. And I think we just leave it in their hands to do the work that they do. It may be helpful if members of council had the questions in advance so that they could be prepared. But I'm not, I don't know what the ombudsman's office would normally do in a situation like that if they were asked for the questions in advance. I certainly have asked for the questions in advance personally, and I haven't received a response on that request.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I
Councillor.
was contacted a couple months ago, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And whatever they thought, if they thought the accusation or whatever it was A, I said, no, it's B, right? So, because it was sort of top of mind when they asked me, right? But I think that's an excellent idea, Michelle, that, you know, I don't think they should be calling you up and grilling, not grilling you, that's over the top too much, but asking you questions without telling you what they're asking, what the questions are. So you can at least bat it around in your mind or revisit a tape of a meeting or do something, right? And so why don't we respond that? I mean, I'm of the same kind of opinion, I think, as the mayor, that frankly, these are a bunch of bureaucrats in Toronto who haven't got enough to do, and they have no ability to say. All they can do is say shame on you, and hopefully you'll do it different in the future. They have no legislative authority that I know of. They can't really do anything other than spend a lot of money. And anyway, I guess they're needed in some form, but I don't think this one. But anyway. So yeah, why don't we ask them to send the questions to all of us? If they want to talk to specific counselors, provide the questions they want to ask, right? I think that's a good idea. What do others think?
Well, I can just comment. I received, I guess, a similar phone call from the lady, and I believe it's the lady whose name was named in as the contact person in the correspondence. Actually, I didn't talk to her. She left me a voice message, but I did call her back, and she just said, please call me. She didn't say why or anything, but I kind of had an idea why, probably. And I certainly have to say the view that Councillor Lamb just articulated about the usefulness of what they're doing in this particular case, at least. Or what I suspect they're doing, because I guess I don't really know, but I phoned her back and I got her voicemail. And so I said, please send me in writing, email me or text me or whatever, the questions that you want answered in advance. I don't want to talk to you without seeing them. And of course, that was a couple months ago, and I haven't heard a peep from anybody since. So I assumed that had that had perhaps deterred her, either because she thought I was, a hostile witness, or I don't know what. But in any case, I figured that matter maybe had got dropped somehow or other. So I was a little surprised to see it back, and that they're still trying to follow it. And I have trouble believing that it's a priority for them. But however, they're, I think that's I guess individual counselors can do what they want, but I would consider that is in fact good advice, is to say to them, yeah, okay, I'll talk to you but you got to give me a heads up, because let's face it, they're going to say, well, what about this meeting or something? Well, I would have to go look up the records. I can't remember all the meetings we've had this year. There's no way I'm going to remember what happened in them without going and looking at the minutes. So they might as well tell us in advance what the allegation was, and what meeting it was, and all that kind of thing, and give it to us in writing so we can, anyway, that's my, and I think I would, if she calls me again, I would probably take the same response.
Yeah.
Councillor Woods?
No, I was just laughing there, Mr. Mayor, when you said there's no way you'd be able to remember something about a specific meeting. I don't think anybody would be able to remember anything about our specific meeting with the number of meetings that we've had, right? So I would agree with you and Councillor Lamb that if you'd want to talk to us, they should be sending us questions first.
Councillor Bray, any comment?
Yeah, I'd agree with this along the same lines. I would never be able to remember what we did in these meetings. I did receive a phone call, but the person did not leave a message or anything. So I thought they would call back, and they haven't.
Might I make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, that we make a motion? We not only receive it for information, but we make a motion or add to the motion, and we request our CAO, Michelle Hendry, to contact whoever the name of this lady is and let her know that it's council's preference that if you're contacting any council member, that you supply the meeting, a date, the subject matter, and the specific questions that you want to ask. Right? I think that's fair. You'd have to research the date of the meeting. You'd have to read the tapes or whatever if they have them. And I don't want to go in, because what happens. They want one to lead to another and lead to another. Anyway, I don't won't say I won't believe in this stuff. I'm sure there's some cases where it's necessary, but to sit there and go down rabbit holes that you can't do anything about is counterproductive in my mind. So anyway, that's what I would suggest, that we add that to the motion.
Any comment, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with that approach. I have dealt with the Ombudsman's office previously in another municipality, and you do tend to go down a rabbit hole, and also you find yourself with rapid fire questions, and there's often two of them questioning you. You're trying to think back, and as Councillor Wood said, we've had lots of meetings, and to understand, they have all the technical data on all these meetings, when they were advertised and the minutes and that kind of thing. But it would be very helpful if we want to help them and move this situation forward. We do need to know what information do you need from us, and what questions are you asking, and that's what I've said to them months ago, and I did not get a response. But I think that's a good approach, and then people can be prepared and feel comfortable with the what I would probably refer to as an interrogation,
Yeah.
which was my experience with the Ombudsman's office, but perhaps it won't be that way this time.
So what I've done is I've added to the motion the following, the first was to receive for information the correspondence. And then that council requests the CAO clerk to contact the Ombudsman's office and request specific details of their questions in advance of any interviews. Does that cover it all right?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
sorry, and I agree with what you just said. I think that sounds great. But a question, I just thought of this.
Hmm.
Are any of us obligated to answer the questions from the Ombudsman's office, or can we say, no, I decline to answer? Are we bound by anything that says we have to?
you can
or-
decline to answer, and their report will say that you decline to answer.
Okay, all right, yeah, I just was wondering that. Thanks.
So I have to ask, are the mover and seconder agreeable to add that to the motion?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I am, sorry.
All right, are you ready for the question then? If so, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Bray,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, then, item 11.4 is, has to do with the OGRA conference. The suggested motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the Good Roads Association 2024 Annual Conference information, and that the following staff/members of council are approved for attendance at the conference. The details are all in the notes. Is there in the package? Is there a mover and seconder for this?
I'll move it, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
I'll
Woods,
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Councillor Lamb, it's moved and seconded. I guess really the discussion is related to who, if anybody, wants to go to it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, through you, I went to one where it was Good Roads and Roma, and of course, the road superintendent went to Good Roads and
Yeah.
and I went to Roma stuff, right? And that's it's mostly for road superintendent, so or that kind of title. So I guess my first question is David still on the line?
I don't see him, to be honest with you. I don't think he is.
Well, I'm going to suggest that we defer this till next month. There's no timeline to it in the sense that certainly David should go. And if he goes, I would support one other person on council going, but if he doesn't go, I don't know what the use of another person on council is going. But I also believe that everyone sort of on this council had a kick at the cat, except Councillor Nash, and he happens to be sick tonight. So I don't know whether he has any interest in attending this council or this conference. So and I don't think we've ever sent more than 2 people. So I would suggest that we defer the whole matter until the December meeting. I don't think there's any timelines to this. I think it's in April, and I think even the hotel is January 23rd. So you got lots of time.
Can you confirm that, Madam CAO? We're not up against any deadline, right?
I have it in front of me, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, hotel reminder, January 23rd.
Oh, yeah, so that's
Lots of time.
All right. Is it agreeable then? Well, let's call the motion to defer that then.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion to defer is carried.
Okay, thank you. So we have three items of correspondence. Are next, and the resolution from Township of McKellar regarding Perry Sound Recreation and Culture Center. A resolution from City of Orangeville or Town of Orangeville, I guess. Gender-based violence and intimate partner violence an epidemic. And correspondence from Township of the Archipelago regarding CP piling railway ties, which caught on fire and posed a hazard. So, here's the motion we need. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 7 of the November 21st, 2023 Council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that Council receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion / action. Mover and seconder.
I'll move,
I'll move.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Woods moves and Councillor Bray seconds. Is that right?
Yep, I will second.
And does anyone wish to pull any of these for discussion or to comment on?
Not me.
Going once? Okay, I'm gonna say none. So we just need to call the question.
Thank you, Councillor Bray,
Yes,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
There are no matters arising from correspondence. So we're at 13, which is councillor items. Does anyone have any councillor items? Okay, I'm not hearing any councillor items. Questions from the public. Let's see, do we have any members of the public? We have Dennis Morrison. I see is still on the line. And Taylor Clark from the North Star is on the line. I don't see anybody else that would be a member of the public. And I don't hear anybody pressing the buttons to talk, so I think we have no questions from the public. And that brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. Mover and seconder that bylaw number 73-2023 being the confirmatory bylaw for the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 be given a first, second, third, and final reading and is passed as of this date.
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Lamb. Thank you. You want to call the question, Madam Clerk, please?
Councillor Bray,
Yes,
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
yes,
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion
And
is carried.
finally, adjournment.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by
I'll second it.
Councillor Lamb. Now therefore be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at 8:51 PM until the regular council meeting of Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at 4 PM or at the call of the chair. Sorry, I'm gonna ask the CAO, is that meeting 4 PM or is it 6:30 on the 12th?
I believe it's 4 PM, Mayor Conley.
Okay,
It is the only meeting in December, the first and only meeting in December.
okay. All right, I thought somehow, and I don't have my calendar here, but I thought it was, I had it at 6:30, so that just got my attention. Anyway, I'll check and make sure, but I think it's 4. But doesn't
Michelle,
matter.
Yeah,
Hmm?
sorry. Michelle, through you, Mr. Mayor. Michelle, at the volunteer appreciation night, is there any entertainment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there is. The, I forget the name of the groups, the Sunny Slope.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Bootleggers?
The same folks
Bootleggers.
that have been at the volunteer appreciation dinner for the last few years. We've gone back to entertainment during social hour as opposed
Yeah.
to at the end of the event, which we tried last year and wasn't very successful.
Yeah, yeah. Good, okay, yeah, that's one of the McPhee's is in that, I think, so, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can call a question on the adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bray,
You're muted.
No, she's not. It's just Councilor Bray.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear anything.
yes,
We're calling the question for,
Oh, okay, sorry,
That's
I
right.
didn't hear the question start. Sorry. Yes,
thank you, Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Stay
Good
warm.
night.
night.
Good night.